I believe we're up. Let me double check here. Yes, we are. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Want to thank you for joining us for our monthly kidney talk, sponsored here by the New Mexico Kidney Foundation. And I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope it's going really well for you. The weather certainly is cooperating, so I'm grateful for that. For this month's meeting, we have joining with us again, Kathy Solar. Is that pronounced correct, Kathleen?
It's Solar.
Solar. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I should have checked with you before I started. And she'll be continuing. She was with us last month. And if you haven't seen that, please go to our Facebook page at New Mexico Kidney Foundation and under events, or there should be a posting there as well, where you can scroll down and it should be the most current event posted for medications. So she began this two-part series discussing medications last month, and we're continuing this time looking at, as the title suggests, injectable medications for diabetes, insulins old and new. And for those of you who may not be familiar or are not experiencing anything related, our interest here at New Mexico Foundation, Kidney Foundation, with regards to the connection with diabetes is that both nationally and in New Mexico specifically, statistics show that 60% of all end-stage renal disease, the chronic kidney disease requiring dialysis, is caused by diabetes. So we really want to focus on it. It's a huge percentage. There are a number of factors that go into that, as we all know. Diabetes is a huge issue, and particularly here in our state, in New Mexico, because of the various demographics, tends to be a greater preponderance of individuals who are afflicted by both diabetes and concurrently with kidney disease. So we've been focusing on that issue here for the past couple months. We know that there's others factors that go into kidney disease. So if you're here specifically because of kidney disease, we will definitely be addressing those as we advance through the year over the next 11 months. But right now we're doing these series with regards to diabetes. And so today, Kathy will be talking to us about this. And if you missed last month's, it was very informative, very practical. It was something that even someone who doesn't know much about diabetes or the medications associated with that, was very informative and easy for me to understand. So if I can understand it, it should be easier for just about anybody to understand that. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Kathy. And I thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to share with us. So Kathy, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So as you said, I'm Kathy Solar. I have Sage Specialty Care. I have a clinic that focuses on diabetes and other endocrinology disorders. Today I'm talking about the injectables, focusing on insulins. Last month we talked about medications for type 2 diabetes. This is the insulins that we use for people with type 1 or for people with type 2 disease. So just to show a picture of, these are the insulin pens. They are truly color coded. So every company has their own specific combination of colors for each of the pens, making it really easy for people on insulin to kind of even quickly out of their fridge or out of their bag, pick the right insulin, so we don't have a lot of confusion. And these are the needles, the little needle caps that go on the pen needles. So getting through insulin. So supplemental insulin that you don't make yourself, is manufactured, hormone produced, should be produced by the pancreas to regulate levels of glucose. It, for type 1 diabetes, it's to control their blood sugar in that they don't make any insulin at all. We also use it for gestational diabetes temporarily, because a lot of the oral medications that are available for type 2 diabetes aren't always safe in pregnancy. And a lot of times we, during a pregnancy, use insulin even though those people are not dependent on insulin and won't need it once the pregnancy is completed. And then, as I mentioned, people with type 2 diabetes, when the oral medications aren't enough to keep their blood glucose controlled, will add insulin. So looking back, the older insulins, we have two types, the analog and the human insulin. So human insulins were the first ones developed. They're basically identical to insulin produced in the human body. There's two basic types, NPH and regular insulins. And regular insulin is kind of an unfortunate name. It's really the NPH is the long-acting insulin, and the regular insulin is the one you use at mealtime. Mm-hmm. They take a lot longer to be processed by your body, so they don't work quickly. The analog insulins were developed to have that faster onset, so the insulin will start to work closer to the mealtime when we need it to work, because that's when the sugar starts going up. The other things we like about that insulin, it tends to produce a whole lot less hypoglycemia, the low sugars. And the earlier insulins really caused a lot of weight gain, which makes it very difficult for people with type 2 diabetes, because we're trying to help them keep their weight down. And for people with type 1 diabetes, it was almost a given that, well, over time, you're just going to keep gaining weight because of these insulins. So these newer insulins are really a great bonus for us. And then we have different types of insulin, meaning how we use that insulin and why we use the different insulins. So a lot of times we'll hear someone say, well, you need a basal insulin or a background insulin. And what that means is your pancreas normally makes insulin at two different times. The first time is every minute of every hour, 24 hours a day. Every cell in our body needs insulin just to function. We like that insulin to be absorbed really slowly, so that it's released into the bloodstream just a little bit every hour, so we get the same amount all day long. That's our basal or background insulin. They keep our sugar consistent through the day, so we kind of have that baseline level of sugar, and when you have a meal, and that gets digested and released into the bloodstream, the sugar goes up, but when you take your second insulin, it should come back down to that baseline. Most of them are taken once or twice a day, and there's a couple different types, and we'll go into this. And this is the insulin that is most commonly used with people with type 2 diabetes, and also with type 1. The second type of insulin that we need when our body needs to have that burst of insulin released is referred to oftentimes as either bolus insulin, or it's sometimes called prandial insulin. And that is an insulin we take with meals. And when our own pancreas is creating and releasing insulin, it's within seconds of when our body realizes the sugars are starting to go up. And no insulin works as fast as our own insulin, but we're doing a better and better job of producing these insulins to work 10 to 15 minutes after we take them when we need them with meals. And some people we want to take before a meal in order to have that start to work as their body's releasing the sugars into the bloodstream, or just after a meal if we're afraid that maybe you're not going to eat the amount that you thought you were. Sometimes I'll tell people, wait till when you're done eating and then you can adjust how much insulin you need for that particular meal. A program is often referred to as a basal bolus insulin regimen. And that is the routine of people who need to take the basal insulin, that 24-hour background insulin, and also take insulin for each meal. The wonderful part of this program is it allows people the flexibility to take the insulin when they need it, when they're having the meal. And with the old insulins, we had to literally plan meals around the first insulin of the day. You had to eat within 2 hours of taking that insulin or you were going to have a low sugar. Also, people had to eat a meal or at least a pretty good snack before bed to make sure they didn't have a low. So this new kind of basal bolus program that's been developed really gives them a lot of flexibility. There's two types of basal insulin. One is the intermediate acting, which is that original NPH insulin, and that is Humulin N, Novolin N, and I forgot to add that Walmart now has their own brand of this insulin, and it's called Relion, and it is Walmart's own brand. And they start working in an hour or two, usually have to be taken twice a day. And then we have the newer long-acting insulins, which it's really hard nowadays to keep up with this group. Every time I turn around, there's yet another new insulin being added to our group. One of the newest ones is called Semglee, but the most common is Lantus, Basaglar, Levemir, and the very newest ones are the Toujeo and the Tresiba. And just like our shorter acting insulins, these newer, longer acting insulins, as they're being improved on, are giving us the confidence that we're really not going to have low sugars from taking that daily background insulin. Companies also have come out with pre-mixed insulins. These are really for convenience, people who eat meals on a regular basis. They eat breakfast about the same time, they eat dinner about the same time. They contain an intermediate acting insulin with a short acting insulin in the same vial. So you just have to do one shot in the morning, one shot before dinner, and it covers your basal and your bolus, which there are some benefits to this, but the difficulty is it really is a great program for people, like I said, who take their meals on a pretty regular, timely fashion every day. And we have a chart, and I'm not going to go over the chart. It's just too much. There are so many different insulins. But what I wanted to do is, as a reference, something you can look back on, is to show in groupings what insulins belong to the same grouping. So as an example, in our first box, we have the prandial That's the rapid acting insulins. And when they take effect, when they reach their peak, and about how long they last until they're completely out of your system. And the type of insulin and the brands, Novolog, Humalog, Admelog, and Apidra. And then underneath those is their generic name. And each of those insulins now have a generic, like Novolog's new generic is called insulin aspart. So as I said, it's really been hard to keep up the last 2 years with all these new insulins coming out. And I thought this chart would be really helpful in that each color shows a grouping of the insulins that are comparable. I often get questions of, well, my insurance doesn't want to pay for Novolog, they want to pay for Humalog. Is that the same insulin? And this chart shows the ones we can interchange.
Cool.
Then the next chart is the same thing, covering the basal insulin, that background insulin. And as you can see, the intermediate, the ones that last about 12 hours, there's only 2 of them, and those are the older ones. The newer ones, there's quite a few, the Tresiba, Levemir, Basaglar, Lantus, and Semglee. And then the newest is the Toujeo. And well, actually, Tresiba's in the wrong spot. I will correct that slide. Tresiba should be with Toujeo as the real long-acting insulins. And those two have such a low profile of hypoglycemia that they're pretty safe for just about everybody to use. So that gives us kind of a primer on insulins, how they work, why we use each of them. But we also have some fun stuff, and this is different ways we can deliver those insulins. First, I want to talk a little bit about continuous glucose meters. Lots of people have these now. It's really opening up with insurances, making it affordable. In the past, they were so regulated, it was very difficult to get all but the very specialized programs of that patients are on to get insurance to actually pay for these meters. That has really opened up. Most of them are now covered even with Medicare, Medicaid insurance, as well as the commercial insurances. So I wanted to talk a little about them. They've been around a very long time, but they continually improve. They're getting very, very accurate. The first ones only lasted about 3 days. They now last, some of them 10 days and some of them 14 days before you have to take them off and put a new one on. They're so convenient because you just have to look at either the receiver, or most of them have an app that sends the information right to your smartphone. You open up your phone and there's your sugar. No more finger sticks, which is fabulous for people taking insulin 4 times a day. That's at least 4 times a day they're having to poke their finger, get a drop of blood to see what their sugars are doing. With these new devices, we don't have any of that anymore. You never have to check your sugar unless you think the device maybe is not working anymore, and then we have you check your sugar just to double check. They often share the data up to the cloud, so I can look even in between a visit if somebody calls me and says, hey, my sugars are running whatever, really high, really low. I can download their data and send them back a message saying, hey, I think such and such is going on. So I find them really convenient myself. And how they work is there's a picture of one of the brands, kind of just a generic one, and it just sits on top of your skin with a little tiny, it's not a needle, it's a plastic catheter that goes just barely under the skin. And it comes in into connection with this, we call it interstitial fluid, and it senses how much, transmits it back to the little meter. And this is just a real basic display of what we see, in that the little round dots are when the person checked their sugar with a finger stick. And the dotted green line shows what really happened in between those sugar checks. This person, although twice was very high, never knew twice they were very low. And so these little meters are really, really, really handy for people using insulin, so that you have a better idea in between what's going on, so you aren't surprised by having really high or really low sugar. This is the picture of a Medtronic sensor, and just like insulins, every year they're coming out with new and improved sensors. So I'm not sure the brand new one is going to look the same, but this is what the other one looked like. Another company is the Dexcom. They've been around for quite a while, and their newest one, the little device you see with the little orange tab on it, that is what is used to insert it in under your skin. You just push the little orange button and it pushes it in, and you're all set. The next to it, the little things that say Dexcom G6, that's what the actual sensor looks like. They continue to get a lot smaller. They use Bluetooth, and they can also, as well as sending the information to your phone or the receiver to help you make decisions on how much insulin, or if you need to maybe eat because you're going too low. They also send the information to these new insulin pumps. This just gives us some information a little more detailed about the G6. Again, a good reference, but we don't need to go over all of that. And then the third one is the Freestyle Libre. This is the newest one. This one gets approved a lot for patients who have type 2 diabetes. It's a lot less expensive, and it really now does everything the other ones do. Sends the information. On the right-hand side, you see the little reader you can have if you don't have a smartphone, and then it shows the data that is going to your smartphone, what it looks like. And you see in the one picture with the person where you wear it on your arm. It's kind of a back under, so you don't bump it off. And this one's pretty great because it stays on for 14 days and before you have to change it. And again, you don't have to do any finger sticks with these. And they all have alarms that warn you your sugar is going high or your sugar is going low, thus preventing really low sugars that come on unexpectedly. People feel a lot safer and more confident using their insulin when they have these devices, because insulin can surprise you. You use your insulin, you take the same amount as you took yesterday, but today maybe you're a little more active and the insulin worked a little better, and now all of a sudden you're low. These devices warn you at least 15 minutes before you have a low. So we've got a great safety built in with these using the insulin. There's a new one out that is used a lot in Europe, and it's implanted. It actually goes under the skin and stays there for 90 days. Not used as much in Europe. In Europe, they're allowed to keep it in the skin for 1 year. 30 days is probably not long enough for me to implant one and have to take it out. And I think that's the downfall with this one, is it has to be surgically removed. We do it in the office, but it's still an incision. And as I said, we have the ability to use insulin pumps to deliver insulin. And some of the pumps get the data from those CGMs I talked about and make decisions. So a pump means you don't have to do any shots at all. The pump gives you all your insulin. It gives you your long-acting and your short-acting. The long-acting by just continuously giving you a little tiny bit of insulin every minute of the day. And then the short-acting effect is that you give yourself extra with a meal. In general, there's two types of pumps. There is the pump that has tubing, which is at the top, and the pump at the bottom, which is sometimes referred to as a patch pump. It does not have any tubing. It is, you just wear this little patch and it has Bluetooth, talks to a device that the device tells the little patch what to do. Okay, so basically how it works, to the left, the insulin goes into the reservoir, which is inside the pump, and then the flexible tubing delivers it over to the infusion set, which, like we showed with the CGM, is just barely under the tissue, just barely under your skin. And again, not a needle, it's just a little plastic. And they're either battery powered. The one on the right is rechargeable. So once a week, it has a rechargeable battery in it. So you just plug it in. Most of them are getting to be touch screen now. Some of them have color screens, and they're really easy to use. You see the one on the right has the little graph on it. That's the Dexcom that's attached to it, communicating with it. So you not only have your insulin in this, but you just take out your pump and look, and you have your sugar, the 162 number. You have the arrow saying your sugar slowly going up higher than you want. And then you have your little graph. Then underneath it tells that you had a bolus of insulin. And as you remember, we use the bolus when we're eating. And then it tells you how long it thinks that insulin's going to be active in your body. The tubing is connected to the catheter that goes into the tissue. But I show this, it's a little hard to tell, but it's the only picture I could find. This is not attached to the body. So when you shower, swim, really active in sports, you unhook the tubing, but the little catheter stays like a little patch on your skin. And when you're done, you just plug it back in. And here's a picture of somebody wearing the little patch and just getting ready to attach the tubing back into the patch. So the patch stays on while you're swimming, whatever. And then when you're done, you attach your tubing and start your insulin again.
Amazing.
So these stay on 3 days. All of them are only approved for 72 hours. And it's just because the deficiency we have in insulin is in the tubing, it forms what we call a precipitate. It gets little thickened particles on the inside of the tubing, and at 72 hours, we know it starts to block how much insulin's really being delivered. So every insurance is approved to have people replace these every 3 days. And then the patch pumps are a little different. There's the little pod on her arm, and she's holding the controller of the pump. And when she wants to give herself insulin, she uses which now is a touch screen. She uses that. It looks like a little cell phone, and it tells the little patch pod to please give me a little insulin. I just had a meal. Otherwise, it's giving insulin continuously. People who have jobs or lifestyles that they're nervous that the tubing is going to get caught up, really like this style of pump, because it seems to give them a little more freedom from that, so that they're not worried. I've had some parents say this has been a lifesaver because their child was always grabbing at their tubing. So this is not easy to remove if a child just grabs it. This is the internal of the patch, the internal workings of it. And then we have the pumps that are integrated with those continuous glucose meters. The two we have are the Tandem and the Medtronic. And it automatically adjusts your background insulin every 5 minutes based on what your sugar's doing. It can give you more, it can give you less. These programs can even turn off how that you get no insulin if it thinks you're going to go low in the next 30 minutes. And this is a picture of the Tandem pump that's doing the same thing. And it can also, it can also give little boluses up to 1 an hour if it thinks you're going too high. And it's programmed to not let your sugars go above 180. These pumps are just fabulous in how they work. And this is, again, just a reference to show you how they make a decision. So if it thinks you're going to go to 180, it gives you a little mini bolus. If it thinks you're going to go above 160, it tries to just increase your basal, that background insulin, to keep you under 160. It decreases how much basal if it thinks you're going to go below 112, and it completely stops all insulin if it thinks you're going to go to 70. And the average number that these pumps turn off, the average patient's sugar is in the 90s when they turn off, thus preventing them from ever reaching 70. Which is a great improvement over the previous ones. The first generation of these pumps turned off when you got to 70. And of course, you still had a lot of insulin in you at that point. So these are definitely an improvement. And that concludes my talk.
Wow.
So any questions? I can talk about insulin and pumps all day long.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, if you do have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat, and either I or Leonda will review those and read them off for Kathy to answer. I guess got to say, Kathy, I am astounded the technology and what they're able to do now compared to when I was first introduced when I was much younger to diabetes and what's all involved with monitoring that and adjusting for it with the insulin. These are amazing. It's really amazing.
Well, I always share with people that my feeling with using these devices is especially people with type 1 who have to do those 4 injections every day and check their sugar so often in order to be safe. These devices are creating a lifestyle for them where diabetes is more in the background instead of what they do every day, all day long. They're free to think about other things other than, gee, I wonder what my sugar's doing.
Right.
And because it warns them, it gives them that constant feedback of what the sugar looks like it's going to do next, which is so important to be able to predict that. And these newer insulin pumps are just incredible programs that really truly I was a little skeptical,
Yeah.
did not think it was going to perform the way that the company representatives were explaining to me.
Right.
And when they came out, I was pretty blown away with how well they work. They've been out for about 2 years now,
Okay.
and it really, really, truly performed spectacularly.
So I'm curious. Well, as we're waiting to see if anyone has any specific questions. So would an individual, if they aren't aware of this, or if they want to know more, would they just simply talk to their primary care, or how would they look
It,
into more of how? Because that as you were presenting, that was the word that came to my mind, is like how freeing that must be, that they can go about a more untethered, for lack of a better word,
Absolutely.
life, and that's just
Right.
must be incredible. So yeah, how would they
Well,
learn more?
two different ways. Number one, a lot of primaries really don't know much about these devices,
Yeah.
the pumps or the CGMs. You can go online and Google continuous glucose meter, or you can Google insulin pumps, and there will be lots of little links that you
Okay.
can go to.
Sure.
But you can go to it'll list all the companies, and you can go to all the companies' websites, and they have patient information pages where
Ah,
they will share more information. You can ask them to send you information about them, or you can usually read a lot of it right online. I have pamphlets I give people to go home and read about them to make decisions and see
sure.
if this is the right thing for them. One of the things I'm always hearing from people who aren't familiar with pumps is there is this kind of information out there that makes them believe these are actually implanted.
Yeah.
And that's why I so carefully showed how they sit on top of the skin, how you insert them, take them out after 3 days, or take the meter, the glucose meter off after 10 to 14 days. Because people really had this idea that insulin pumps were surgically implanted. And they'll say, well, but how do you put the insulin
Yeah.
in?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest information that we really had to share with people, that hey, these are external devices, you have total control over them, you can take them off, you put them back on.
Just totally amazing. I mean, it's like something almost out of science fiction movie or something like that.
It
Um,
is. And these new programs in these pumps, and there's only two pumps doing that right now, and
okay.
the Tandem pump and the Medtronic pump,
Electronics. Yeah.
and they are fairly close to an artificial pancreas.
Wow.
They're not quite there. The FDA is a little nervous about it going too fast with them, and they've wanted these companies to roll out the programs step by step to assure that they're safe to use.
Yeah.
And they have been very, very safe. And so the FDA continually allows them to do more and more. And there is a program in the works right now waiting for approval that will actually start giving the bolus insulin with food.
Wow. Uh,
People will no longer have to stop before a meal or after a meal and say, okay, how much insulin should I give
right.
myself?
Right.
These artificial pancreas pumps are going to start doing all of it.
Wow.
And I'm just so excited.
That's amazing. That's yeah, very encouraging. I just want to pass on here. Myra, who's been watching, said this was information has been extremely helpful, and thank you so much. So, um,
Oh,
and
I'm
while
so
we're waiting,
glad.
yeah, just give a little bit more time here in case anyone has any specific questions. If
Sure.
you'd like to know any more about New Mexico Kidney Foundation, we have our link is should be available either on the Facebook page or associated with this live event, as well as I could just tell you it's at nmkf.org. kidney.org. You can go there and learn much more. So, well, Kathy, I'm not seeing any specific questions right now. Obviously, you've done a
Okay.
very thorough job, or blowing us all away like you have me, because it's just amazing. I had no idea that this was
Well,
available. That's very
and
encouraging.
I'm very, very happy that the information will stay posted
Yep.
for them, because it's a lot. It was a lot for me to present. A lot of it is so technical. And just like the information charts on the different types of insulin, I really encourage people to go through the slide deck again, read a little more carefully about what each of these
Yeah.
devices do, how the different insulins work. The more educated we are to how our medications work, the easier it becomes for us to make the right decisions with these
Right.
insulins
Yeah.
and these devices. And my phone number's on the front.
The
If
initial
anybody
slide,
has
correct.
questions later on, I love to talk about insulin and pumps. They can absolutely call the clinic and leave a message. And if they can't find the information online, like I said, I've got pamphlets in my office that the companies give me, and I'm
Excellent.
always happy to share them with anyone.
Well, good. That was really the impetus for my initial question, Kathy, is, how do they learn more and helping them make a decision on what to pursue? So that helps a lot. I'm really grateful for your willingness to field those questions too. And yes, we'll keep this posted with all our events online on the Facebook page. So they're more than willing or more than happy to have them go there and check that out. So, well, again, thank you. I don't see any specific questions on here. So really appreciate your
Okay.
contribution, and we look forward to
Well,
spending more time with you maybe in future presentations.
okay. Well, thank you for having me. As
Excellent.
always, I'm very focused on education and love to do whatever I can to help people with diabetes.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it. Okay. Have a
All
great
right.
evening and Happy New Year to everyone.
All right. Bye
Okay.
now.
Bye bye.